Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. I am JT.
Hey guys, I'm Joey.
And today we will be talking about athletes versus coaches. What makes a great coach and why learning from a champion isn't always the best option. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, you got to hang around champions to be a champion and all this kind of stuff. But I'm actually going to say that's not true. I believe, and there's plenty of good examples out there of guys who came up, maybe they weren't as famous as their other counterparts, but because of their skills and their ability to teach, they have created champions and created an environment that built the next generation of champions. And also because they didn't just think about themselves. They were thinking about how to help others. And I feel that's a big delineation between someone who's good at doing their own thing and someone who's good at helping others. Your thoughts on this, Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I think what happens there is that we tend to conflate someone who performs well as being able to teach somebody else to perform well.
Yes.
And it's a bit of a natural thing. It's like, oh, so-and-so's a savage in competition. I'm training with them at the moment. Yeah, there are obviously examples of people who've done both. I don't know how. I'm sure Marcelo Garcia is a great coach.
Yes.
Right. There are those people out there undoubtedly, but the qualities that it takes to be a great athlete or a great performer are different to the qualities that it takes to be a great coach. One is you're an educator. The other one is you're the action. You're the person doing the thing.
Executor.
Yeah, that's right. It's a better way to put it. So I think it's funny because you see certain brands of jiu-jitsu or certain coaches, whatever, really kind of holding up their achievements in that area. Like, oh, look what I did in competition and I'm multiple time this and blah, blah, blah. And, it's cool. It's worth mentioning to a point.
Definitely.
But when you view it from this perspective, it's like, well, it's actually kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Show me what your students have done.
Exactly.
Like what have your people achieved?
This is very interesting because this comes up in the realm of coaching, PT, all of this, because this is where you can sound out the kind of BS in the health and fitness game. Because, yeah, sure, you look great. Look at you with your abs and your chest and your bench press and your pull-ups. Show me what your clients can do. Show me how you actually help someone else become great in their own way.
Yeah.
And really, if, as much as you can be like, look at me, I'm so awesome, it is a very different set of skills to be able to help someone, an individual, tap into their own potential. So I'm going to give an example, shots fired, of an athlete, great athlete, terrible coach, Otavio Souza.
Oh, fuck that guy. No, I'm cool with Otavio.
You have no idea.
I've got no idea what he's like. I've seen his shit. He looks like great jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Man, he's so good, like 3 or 4-time world champion. Got kicked out of his own gym. Like he was running a Gracie Barra gym, but he would just change the training to suit himself. He wouldn't do the warm-up. He'd just go, you come with me. We're going to roll. Yeah, you guys, whatever, you take them. And was just shaping the training. It was actually a bit of a debacle a couple of years ago that he actually got kicked out of the gym that he was meant to own.
Wow.
Because he was just running it as his own personal little training camp.
Fiefdom.
And didn't care.
And that points to a quality of a great athlete, which is not to say that you have to have this, but one of the qualities that you do see with these very high-level athletes is selfishness.
Yes.
Right? And it's like,
Gordon Ryan.
I'm here to do what I need to do. I'm not fucking here for you.
Yes.
I'm not helping you with shit. I'm here to get better. And if that means I'm going to crank it on you and I'm going to hurt your fucking foot because I'm working footlocks tonight.
So be it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Not my problem. I got a comp I'm prepping for. And that, it's not to say that you have to be that way. But, well, actually, maybe to be at that top level of any sport,
number one in the world.
You do need a bit of that.
Yeah, and really, black belt world championships, you have to be not afraid to hurt somebody to win.
Yeah.
Like, because I watched the final between Otavio and Leandro Lowe, and he breaks Lowe's arm.
Right.
Yeah, he puts Lowe in an arm bar because Lowe, is breaking the De La Hiva, and Otavio is good at that. And Otavio throws on, it's 2014, check it out, Otavio versus Lowe. He bends his arm the wrong way. Like, it's like this the wrong way. And, a lot of people talk
So it doesn't tap.
Low doesn't tap. You know what he does do? He just goes like, fights out of it and just goes, bah, snaps it back into place and just keeps fighting. Like, doesn't pause, just lets go. And I think even Ottavio's like, oh no. Oh,
shit.
I can't.
It's a huge flex.
He's a zombie. Like, what can I do to this guy? But now let's go the other way. Let's talk about some amazing coaches.
And Ottavio's son, Micah Galvan, would go on to fuck him up.
I have no idea if they're related. I think that's a
I think I've given away a few years there.
Misattribution. We have no idea if Ottavio even has children. But no, I mean, it's like one of those things that even if we look at other fields of sport, if we think about some of the great coaches in football, basketball, even Olympic sports, even though they may have gone through their process, their ability to bring out the best in others is really what separates them. So if you train at a gym that's not famous, that doesn't mean you can't get exceptionally good as long as your coach is willing to really invest in you.
That's right.
By the same token, if you go to a famous gym and you're like, well, I get to hang out with famous jiu-jitsu champions, the magic will rub off on me. It's not necessarily true.
By the way, dropping into Unity when you go to New York?
I just might. No, I'm JT Torres.
Rub some shoulders.
Get staff. No.
How dare you?
Full respect.
Last episode was on staff, FYI.
So yeah.
But of course, you guys already knew that.
Yeah, you already listened. Let's talk about cases of people who were probably very good competitors, but not necessarily world champions, who are now breeding the new generation or have coached champions. So I'm going to say Heath Pedigo of, Pedigo Submission Fight Team.
Yep.
Daisy Fresh. Shout out to those guys.
Obviously doing some things right.
Amazing. That training environment is crazy intense. And I think what he's been able to do is take that hardcore work ethic from wrestling and apply it to jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
And they're creating killers over there.
Well, I want to mention something before this, because there's when you look at what it takes to build something great from a team perspective or from an individual perspective, it is often the ability to apply something that is missing in that person's approach.
Sure.
Right? So, as an example, say I'm a coach, I might have, and I'm not saying this relevant to Pedigo, by the way, it's a completely isolated statement.
Joe's just stepping back right now.
Yeah, but it's like I might not have the best technical understanding. I might not of the game. I might not, and any game, any sport, I might not have the best strategic ideas, but I'm really fucking good at motivating you.
Yes.
I'm really good at lighting the fire within you.
Yeah.
And you happen to be good enough at strategy, good enough technically, that's all you needed.
Right.
Right? Or, it could be something else. It could be, you have all of the fire, but you don't have the technique. I'm an amazing technician. Maybe John Danaher's a bit like that, incredible technician and strategist. And
not necessarily the greatest practitioner in his career, but his ability to make others better, ridiculous.
Yeah. But it's like, it's so nuanced. It's like, is he in there yelling at Gordon, like,
No.
do this? No. Or is he just like, hey man, this is a system I want you to start working on, and that system's fucking beating everyone. Obviously speaking out of turn because I don't know him and I've not trained with him. But my point is that like, it could just be one little thing that you're able to give to the right person at the right time that allows them to become great.
Yes.
And a conversation I had some time ago with a strength coach about that and about developing athletes, and it was Emmett Lewis I was talking with.
Yeah.
And he said, and I think I've used this example before, but he said, the training method for the top level of like athletes, like Olympic athletes, it doesn't matter too much. He's like, if you take someone that is sort of genetically predispositioned to be the best at their given sport, you could pretty much lock them in a room for 3 months with a set of weights and just tell them to come out and win the world championships, and they will.
Okay.
He's like, the specific program they follow isn't as important as or the qualities they already have inherently.
Okay.
And that's also not to be defeated by it. It's like, no, of course the program matters, but he's just pointing out that like when you get to that level. So the reason I mention that is because for a lot of the people listening to this, well, for a handful of them, they might be like Daisy Fresh. I want to train at that level, or Danaher. I want to try and be the next Gordon Ryan.
Yes.
I want to try. But majority of them probably like, I just like want to get as good as I can get. And I'm not trying to beat the world, but I just want to fucking
Get good.
roll better, get my next belt, like continue to progress.
Sure.
Which for them, right, it's a whatever they need is probably different to what Gordon needs or what Craig needs.
Yeah, agreed. And I can speak to that a little bit because I've spoken to, as much as I like to talk shit about Craig Jones, I respect Craig and I have spoken to him and picked his brain about what it's like to train at DDS. You know, when he was still coming back to Absolute, like, hey man, how's your trip? You know, he'd leg lock the shit out of me and I'd hate him for it, but I'd be like, yo,
fuck, it's 2.5 minutes left in this round. Tell me about your trip.
No, there's no chat when we roll us on. But no, I'd say like, man, like how's Gordon? Like how are you going against Gordon? Like I want to know in truth because he won't lie. Like Craig's a pretty straightforward guy. And just say, man, like what's it like? And he would say that John coaches very little to the senior guys. I'm not sure what he's like with the more beginner crew. But he would just challenge them. He'd say something like, you cannot take the back if the hip is higher than the shoulder. Like say you're coming from guard. He'd just say something like that. But he wouldn't say it because it's gospel. He'd kind of give it as a challenge and be like, prove me wrong. And so they'd all kind of look around at each other and be like, fuck, is that true? Like, okay, let's see if the old man's right. You know, and they'd go to work on, they'd do specific training and they'd either kind of prove it wrong, prove it right, but he'd just incite them to work. And that was his role. And that's really like that. Craig would say, he would just say really not mystic things, but things which you weren't sure if they were right or wrong. You had to discover for yourself. And I think for very high level people, maybe that makes sense. I think what I have observed, like I'm going to speak to Cicero Costa fame. A lot of people don't necessarily know who he is, but he's really the father of the Meow Brothers and Leandro Lowe. And many, it's still a great team. There's probably
Team No Tap.
Yeah, fuck killers from that gym. And interestingly enough, our friend Ari Tabak is actually a black belt under Cicero.
Yep.
And I've had detailed conversations with Ari about what it's like to train with Cicero and train at Cicero Costa in Sao Paulo and all of that. And he says everyone just wants to be like Cicero. They all aspire to roll as technical, as good, as hard as him. And I'd never heard of him within the fame of all of the champions from the 90s. And I do know that he had won championships and things, but he never had that like,
like top level guy.
Andre Galvan fame. He wasn't as famous as you know, Fabio Gurgel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But all of his guys just wanted to be like him. And he created this environment that was super intense. Like they fight to the death. You know, there's no real like specific. It's just, you're ready? Okay, now we roll to the death for an hour and a half. And that's the training they do. And I'm not saying that's the best way to train, but he really inspired his guys through his example. And I've never seen him coach. The flip side of this is there are very famous guys who've created champions, like Fabio Gurgel, Andre Galvan, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But if you're out there and you're listening...
And they've repeated it multiple times.
Multiple
which
times.
alludes to, well, they have a process that makes them an exceptional coach.
They do understand.
To a point, you could also make the argument, and not in all of those examples, but you could make the argument for some of them that the exceptional athletes find their way to that team.
No, they do.
Right? So you got to take it with a grain of salt.
There's a bit of a confirmation bias there. Definitely, once people know that there's really hard training there and you're trying to be the top 1% in the world, you're like, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go into the fire and become one of those humans. And there's plenty of learning in that. I guess the reason why I wanted to bring this topic up is I get really, I don't know what the right word is for this. I feel a bit nonplussed when people are like, oh, I have to go train with this champion.
Bit what?
Nonplussed. Like, I don't care.
Right.
Like, I don't think it's true because I've trained with a couple of champions and learnt nothing because they're training for them. They don't care to show you something. You know, they just want to bash you. You're just a body. And that's shit. That's not good training. What I have benefited from is someone above me, better than me, rolling me, and at the end of the roll saying, hey, man, when you're here, you shouldn't do that. You should do this. That's a gem. It's like, oh, no one ever told me that. That's great. or someone who's way better than you just outclassing you and then being like, hey, this thing you did was good, but this is, don't, stop doing that. Just something little, but that's huge. Just getting that little bit of feedback as opposed to someone tapping you 10 times and be like, yeah, cheers, bro, and just walking off.
Yeah.
Like, that's crap. And I've rolled with a couple of high-level champions who've just kind of wrecked me and walked off, and they didn't give a shit. And I feel like this idea of trying to get greatness from greatness is a myth.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
It's a little bit a similar thing that was being spoken about when Dmitry Klokov was running weightlifting seminars.
I was just about to talk about Klokov.
Yeah, right.
Now, if you guys don't know who Dmitry Klokov is, he's possibly one of the strongest Olympic lifters in the history of the sport. And also now...
And he's got a six-pack, which you don't see in heavyweight weightlifters.
No,
he's like, he looks like a bodybuilder, yeah.
He could be a pro bodybuilder type look,
yeah.
But also just ridiculous. I have some inside info about him, but...
I mean, you're assuming he's enhanced because he doesn't compete in the Olympics,
he's stronger
right?
now. No, he was in the Olympics.
Was he?
He did the Olympics for about 12 years.
Okay.
But now he's not in the Olympics.
And he's just
huge. He's so much stronger now than he was.
He's an awesome guy to follow on social media and stuff. Like he does crazy lifts. He loves putting, girls in bikinis on the barbell and push pressing. Yeah, funny shit. He's one of the few guys from that side, from like the Soviet region, who's having a bit of fun.
Sense of humor.
Yeah, sense of humor. It's the one to say. But he ran these seminars, these workshops, and apparently, actually, to his credit, I did speak to a couple people like, oh yeah, he did help me with a couple things, but it was also less so like this guy he's not producing amazing athletes. He's not a great weightlifting coach. He's a great weightlifter.
Yes, practitioner, but not a teacher. Mate, there is a clip, and you can Google this, and I wasn't at the seminar, but my old weightlifting coach was Efim. So Efim Kurabatsky, shout out to Phil, as he's otherwise known. He,
Efim, because all the Aussies couldn't say his name.
Couldn't say
like,
Efim.
What?
Efim?
Yeah.
Efim? What?
He's like, just call me Phil.
Just call me Phil.
Fucking.
So he had to translate for Klokov's coach. And he knows Klokov's coach because actually he trained with him back in the day.
Right.
So, and he actually understands their method really well because he told me, back in the day, they all used to train in this big training hall, the Olympic, like the AIS for Russia.
Right.
And he used to play ice hockey. He didn't represent Russia, but he was trying to make the team. This guy was there on the Olympic weightlifting team, Klokov's coach. So he knows Klokov's coach, and he's like, Klokov's a meathead. He'll eat a bag of candy and a can of Coke for breakfast. Like he's an idiot. At this seminar, he says to this guy, stop pushing your head forward when you jerk. Like the guy's like doing the jerk and throwing his head forward. And Klokov's going, stop doing that. And the guy's not. So literally the guy's like, all right, jerk. And he puts his fist in front of the guy's face and the guy headbutts his fist and fucking almost KOs himself. He gives the guy a blood nose.
Yeah. It's like, you're welcome, fuck.
You paid $350 for a blood nose from Klokov. That's fucked up, man. That's so fucked. I saw that and I was like, this guy's a dick. Oh, what a meathead. And he's a king. Like he's a hero. He's a national hero in Russia, so he does what he wants. But that's terrible. I can't condone that.
Yeah, no, that's not cool. And no shade on. It'd be great to go to a seminar if it's just because you get to hang around the guy and see what he's like.
Yeah, whatever. I think it's overrated, but
yeah, but if you want that experience, right? And I remember we spoke about this on a couple of episodes ago, talking about seminars.
Sure.
But I remember our mate Adam Childs was ragging on a few years ago. Apparently, Habib Nurmagomedov ran a seminar in Melbourne.
Yes,
and Adam was like, he fucking ran a seminar and tickets were $1,000. He's like, as if like, what, like he's not a great coach. He's just the UFC champion. Like, what is he going to be able to pass on? But I was like, dude, if I had $1,000 spare, I'd love to go to that. I'd love to hang out with Khabib in the same room for a day.
Just vibe.
Even if he was just showing us how to pummel, like whatever. I'm not here for the technique.
See what he's like.
Yeah.
No, I definitely understand that. I guess if we can like circle back around and think about someone's out there and maybe they're looking like, who do I learn from? And I think you can learn from anyone. It doesn't matter if they're a champion, they're not a champion. But I think it's where you start looking at the qualities of somebody, Because sometimes you meet somebody and you're like, wow, their jiu-jitsu is great, and they're a complete asshole. You're like, God, he's like sleazing on the girls, and he's like, just doing unsanitary things. And
Maybe she's sleazing on the guys.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm just saying, regardless of who's sleazing on who, they exhibit behaviors that you wouldn't model.
Yeah.
And what I have had to do in my lifetime is learn to separate the art from the artist. Like, I think you can still appreciate when someone does something well, but you don't have to love who they are.
Yeah.
Like Conor McGregor at 145 was like crazy. Like him, that like 155, he's better than anyone.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor is possibly one of the worst humans in the history of humans.
Yeah. It's looking that way.
You know what I mean? Like, and so you go, all right, like, can you appreciate what he did to build himself up to be who he is? Yeah. He's some working class dude, and he made it be, he leveraged everything he had to be who he is. Great. That doesn't mean that you're going to take life lessons from that guy.
No, it doesn't mean he's an awesome guy and you want to emulate his
behavior.
behavior.
He's not your life coach.
Yeah.
Right? You're not like, I'm going to live the Mac life. It's not going to happen. So I think when you're looking at your coach, you might look and think, I don't know if my coach has all the qualities I want. You might be older than your coach. Your coach might be 21 years old and really good at jiu-jitsu. You're 45 years old and you're like, man, this kid's partying on the weekends. What are you doing? Questionable stuff. Maybe they showed a class. They're a bit blurry-eyed. And, you're like...
Never party, guys. Never have sex.
Never have fun.
Only drink water.
Only water and acai.
The bulletproof maxims and eat acai.
No, look,
and some days pour harder.
Some days. But I look at it and I think what has held me back in the past is being too judgmental. So looking at someone like Gordon Ryan.
I don't believe it.
No, well, me being the Buddhist I am, I accept all. Hating the personality, but then understanding there's lessons to be learned there. That guy is good at what he does.
Yeah.
You could learn from him, but can you tolerate his personality kind of thing?
Yep.
That's what I'd say.
Continue on with that. I just got to put a new battery in the camera.
Please. So I think for all of you out there listening, you also might want to re-examine, is this person you're learning from the best person? Because you might think, oh, no, I'm developing all the traits of a champion. And then you find out that champion takes steroids. And then you also find out that champion maybe sexually abused somebody. And then you find out that they do other questionable things. You're like, I don't want to actually give this person money. I don't want to support what they do. Because that's the other thing too, guys. If you are thinking about how you live in the world, where you put your money is kind of where you show your support. And I think this has become more prevalent recently that you might look at a gym which is full of champions and people who are great at jiu-jitsu, but maybe they're not great people.
Yeah. You vote with your dollar.
100%.
Absolutely.
So
I think it's there's a couple things on that. One, I think that we need to give credit to like say there's those list of individuals who have gone and created world champions, built these amazing teams, and got notoriety around it.
yes.
I would, that's the tip of the iceberg in a sense. Then you've got all these other people who are amazing jiu-jitsu coaches who are out there in some suburb, some team.
Yep.
They're not breeding, high-level competitors. They've just got everyday people coming through and they're changing lives.
Yeah.
And they're doing their best to be the greatest coach for those people.
Yeah.
They're building their kids' team and they're keeping the kids engaged and teaching them discipline. And they got, people coming in whose maybe health isn't in the greatest place, but they're helping them find fitness and an outlet in jiu-jitsu and no one will ever know their name, right?
No, but that value, that contribution is huge.
That is, and it's also like it's also very noble, I think, to choose. Maybe it's not a choice, but I think for a lot of people it might be. But to work with those people is very noble because there isn't any notoriety.
No glory in that.
Yeah, it's like personal trainers will often say that, like, oh, I'm kind of sick of working with general population. I just want to work with like athletes and shit. Yeah. You're like, well, that's really great. Like I can see the appeal in that. But general population, like regular folk, that's actually where you're going to make the biggest change.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have an impact, you're helping someone lose 20 kilos. You're helping someone extend the quality of their life.
Really, it's a big change.
It's huge, right? So, you know, and in jiu-jitsu, we look at it, and that's the bulk of the coaches out there are like, oh, my team's just a regular team.
Yeah.
There's so much credit in that. And I guess it's going back to that point I made earlier where it's like it's nuanced. Like, what does that person need versus what does that person need? It's very different between someone who's an elite level athlete and then someone who's just doing it to stay in shape and enjoy their life a bit more.
And I think for me, I saw a documentary many years ago, which was all about Rodolfo Vieira. And I'm a huge fan of Rodolfo Vieira, even though I loathe people who take steroids. I'm pretty sure Rodolfo was on a lot of gear when he competed. But honestly, possibly one of the most dominant heavyweights to ever do jiu-jitsu. Take down, pressure pass, just destroy everyone. His coach, Julio Cesar, also known as the General, but he worked with, you know, he's the founder of GF Team. In the documentary, he said, you know, jiu-jitsu creates the citizen, and that's the role of jiu-jitsu. We create like good people in the society, and then the champion comes from good people. It's like a layer on top of that.
Right.
But the role, firstly, is to create the good citizen.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
I was like, that's cool. And it's very rare that you hear, I guess, people speak philosophically about why they teach jiu-jitsu. Because, you know, GF Team is just this small gym in Rio. And, I mean, there's a lot of people who train there now, but it's just super ghetto. And GF Team's some of the toughest guys in all of Brazil. And it's all around the world now too. And really, you know, even though they've had a fair few high-level black belts, champions, Rodolfo is the most famous, that still sticks with me. And I still think about that every day when I'm teaching. And I get massive joy out of the people I'm teaching, even though I know that, you know, maybe 1 out of 10 of any of them wants to really compete and go hard there. I don't mind, because I see the changes in people week to week, month to month, becoming more resilient, you know, just being that little bit more savage in a quiet way.
Yeah.
Like, you know, someone who was a bit like, they hurt my hand, to like, yeah. And then I cross-faced them. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know that when they go out in the world, they're better humans. They're tougher humans. They can deal with more easier.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is arguably a larger transition than, say, taking an elite athlete from being exceptional to being like 1% better.
Yeah.
It's a much bigger difference for that regular person who is now no longer timid to engage in a full contact sport.
Yeah, definitely.
Regularly and enjoy it. It's like, that's a huge fucking change. That is a fundamental change to you as a person.
How you approach life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, if you're out there and you are early in the jiu-jitsu journey and you're not sure, you're like, we don't have heaps of champions at my gym, or is this the right place for me?
Or I went to a seminar at a champions gym and I feel like I need to go and train there.
Yeah.
Like, because it was just so cool. And, you know, like, because there's an allure to that.
Definitely.
There's an allure to, but they got that person in there that's like killing it. And you're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it relevant to you?
It might be.
Could be.
You know, I've done that. You know, I went to Alliance headquarters in Sao Paulo because it was the hardest training I ever experienced, because I wanted that. But, you know, whether you want it or you don't, I think being able to identify a coach who is investing in their students and doing that, I believe there is more value in finding a coach who cares about how you're going, you know, on the mat and personally, than just having someone who's really good at jiu-jitsu and just doesn't even know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Fam, we're going to wrap it up there, but a couple of things to mention. The couple of new changes to the standards program of late. For anyone that's using standards, you will notice that the accessory drills, which is the last superset in each of the 3 workouts, the exercises there have changed.
Cool.
This was meant to be an automated feature, but we haven't been able to come up with that functionality yet. We will once we have our app, but currently it's a manual thing. So I went in there and changed it. I had a couple people mess me like, bro, where did the split squats go? I noticed we got some sick kettlebell rack squats in there now. Just wanted to check. So that was a manual upgrade, and you'll see that stuff change every 6 to 8 weeks. So just keeping you on your toes. Make sure if you are using the standards program that you do check back in with the actual program itself on the website at least every week so that you're aware of that stuff. The next piece we got coming is we're going to be adding some warm-up elements and some extra instruction to how you navigate each of those workouts. That's what I'm working on at the moment, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you are not on our program, but you think that you could do with some more strength and some more flexibility that's going to help you be more athletic on the mats, we got you. Sign up for our program today. You can take a free trial for 1 week. It's bulletproof for BJJ.com. It's all there. There's multiple options within there that are going to help you get stronger and more mobile and rehab old injuries. So get on it. And if you use the code BJJ Podcast, you'll get 20% off your subscription. Now, last piece on that. If you do want to support the show, but you don't feel like doing the program, you can also hook it up on Patreon. We got a few options there. Go and check it out. We don't want you to do all of those things, but if you're like, hey, I like what you guys do, I would like to support you in some way, man, train our program and get strong and mobile at the same time. If that's not for you, do the Patreon piece, and we'll enjoy a bowl of acai in your name.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, fam. We'll catch you next week.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, JT.
Cheers, bro.